Welcome to the Public Access Podcast. I don't know if I need to do that. There's a thing called the Millennial Pod that's a big thing with TikTok videos and maybe other videos where, because now instantaneously when you push a button, it goes. There's not like that delay that we used to have when we would, use a camcorder and we'd have to wait for a second for it to go. So there's usually this awkward split-second pause, maybe more sometimes before a video starts. But we'll see how this works out. We'll see what happens. But I'm here. This is the Public Access Podcast. My name is Rusty Diamond. I'm your host. And I'm here with my special guest is Marianne Murphy. Marianne, thank you for being here. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks so thanks so much for having me.
You are welcome. So I've been going down this I don't know, I guess kind of a rabbit hole, but it's my own rabbit hole. So one thing I was wondering, so you said, okay, you live in Florida, and so born and raised in Florida?
Oh no, I'm a typical South Floridian New York transplant. So 40 years ago, my family moved to Boca Raton from Long Island.
Okay, so all right. So then my first question is, when did Boca Raton start feeling like home? Was there a moment where it started feeling like home?
That's a great question. It probably didn't happen till well into my 20s because 13 is such a tough age to move.
Sure.
Um, and I think, yeah, as a teenager, I thought, oh, I'm always going to end up back in New York, and that definitely didn't happen. So I started traveling a lot pretty young, and so then Florida kind of became the new home, or as I like to call it, my boomerang home. I go away, I come back. So, yeah.
Keep keep bringing you on back there, and I I thought that I was maybe going to go that path when I was in Connecticut. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna probably end up down in Florida. I didn't end up in Florida, but it was a possibility. That was definitely on the table as somewhere that was a consideration. Uh, where were you on Long Island that you grew up?
Oh, yeah, Bayport's pretty far out, South Shore, small
Okay,
hamlet.
all right. So I don't know. I went out to Long Island a little bit, but I didn't really go too far in. I took the ferry over there from Bridgeport to Jefferson, I believe, somewhere in there. So
Sure,
I
that's
was on
yeah,
that,
the for Jeff.
yeah, on the north part. And Bridgeport's an interesting
Yeah.
place. Shout out to Bridgeport. But yeah, so I mean, so it started feeling. I mean, like yeah, 13 was an interesting time. I mean, that's a hard time for anyone. I always feel like that was a hard time for me. 13, I was having some troubles at 13, and I can assume many other people were. And I hear people that say that they're teachers and stuff, and they're like, "I'm a middle school teacher." I'm like, "What? Why are you a middle school teacher? Like that's got to be like, I think that's got to be harder than anything else." But maybe that's just because of my own perception of everything. But yeah, I
No, it
mean,
is hard. I was was a middle school teacher very briefly. It's
you were a middle
very
school
hard.
teacher very briefly. Okay, so was that your choice,
Uh,
or was that what was available?
well, so Rusty, I make unusual choices,
Cool. Now you're on the right podcast.
and and I was on the heels of getting fired from one job, and I wanted to relocate to this community. So I thought, let me sign up for substitute teaching, just, have some income rolling in. Well, there was a teaching shortage in Florida at the time. So all of a sudden, the principal is pinging me, through their online messaging system. Like, we have a job. Like,
Well,
I was like, I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a certified teacher. She's like, oh, we have programs for that. I'm like, okay. So I was like, okay. So I didn't really think about it very
Sure.
much. And then come to find out they needed bodies and they had someone in mind for the job, but they weren't available at the start of the year. So I wasn't destined to be long term at this, but I failed pretty spectacularly on the classroom management end of it. So, you know, yeah, it's it was like the 10% undid everything. I actually really enjoyed the job, but the classroom management was just, I mean, it was chaos. This the small 10% created undid everything. So yeah.
What was that 10%? Like what, if you can get into that, I don't know if you're going back into the teaching world or if that's something that you can.
No, I'm not. I tutor occasionally.
Okay.
No, it's just, from a, we're talking about children, so I can't be too revealing, but
Right.
more boys than girls generally. And they're just like a pack. They feed off of each other's energy, and
Yeah.
it's about, okay, like we're gonna get her, and it's defiance. It's you know purely that,
Yeah.
and a pack mentality. So
What was your approach for that? There was a South Park episode. I don't assume you watched South Park, but there was an episode where the kids are now in fourth grade and they get a new teacher and can't figure out how to, uh, get a handle on the kids and had to go ask the old teacher, what to do. And, um, it was an interesting way to do it. But I don't know. I mean, there's always a
well,
different way to do it. Like it's, you know,
yeah.
what works for
Well, I,
you?
I think
Or
part of my problem was, I was pretty starry-eyed going into it. I was not fully prepared. Luckily, a colleague of mine, he's like, send them over if they won't course correct. Send them over with something to do, and that's what I started doing. Um, Turn the lights off. That would get their attention. You know, something
yeah,
like that. I found if I had given, if I had been given more time, you know, what I was learning from reading different resources and talking to, colleagues and stuff, and friends who are teachers, it's like you have to be very calm. Like you can't get dysregulated by their chaos, which is a tall order for me.
sure, for
So
anyone.
I I'm a highly sensitive person, so getting dysregulated is not a hard thing for me to accomplish. So um, and it's just too much noise. It's just like it was. I would solicit a lot of feedback from the kids um, on little index cards, and the amount of kids who were like, "I wish so and so would just shut up." Like
Okay.
I wasn't alone in this. Like the noise was so overwhelming that like you can't think. So,
Yeah.
but
I,
it was a hard failure.
I don't blame you. I mean, that's gotta be hard, especially when, like, I don't know. Substitute, I was a substitute for the substitute, I think is what it was for me. So like if, what was it? Or no, what wasn't a substitute for substitute? It was if like was it a substitute for substitute? Or like if the assistant teacher couldn't come in, then I came in. I think I ended up being a substitute like by myself once. And then the other times it was usually like helping out like in a special ed class or something of that nature. And so I mean, yeah, I didn't really like I knew I didn't want to be work with middle school. I did that in middle school. I guess I was in middle school. I think I did one day with the middle school, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do this. I don't remember what they had me teaching. I'm putting that in air quotes for people who are listening for that one day. But I mean, that was maybe 12 years ago, something like that. And yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't
Well, I was teaching leadership and then speech and debate, and the problem was I was in a rural community, so they had limited options. And you cannot put 6th through 8th graders unwillingly into speech and debate and expect them to participate. So
oh
it was kind of, it was not, uh, and so I felt bad for some of these kids. Like, I didn't choose this elective. So I was telling them, look, you have an option to get out of my class. Take the option because you're going to fail the class if you don't participate. Like, this is what I have to grade you on.
right.
So I felt there was a certain amount of where, public speaking is like one of the number one fears people have, right? So then put that in a 6th grader, 7th grader, 8th grader dynamic, forget it. And you don't want to be there? That's not going to work. So I thought it was kind of dumb, that they did this. They put, and it wasn't like just a handful of kids. It was like a lot of kids put in this position
Whoa.
who didn't who didn't want to. And I said, this is too much of a stretch. Like, you have to be a confident kid to sign up for that at that age. So
Right.
I think, whatever reasoning they had that they wanted to offer that, maybe, who knows, state funding, there was a better choice. Who knows what's going on in the back end, right? There's always something though. And, but I just was like, for a certain amount of my kids, I was like, who were just good kids, but they're like, like, I'm so shy, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then the kids who are a pain, I was like, yeah, if you don't like me, you can go into another elective. You don't have to be in my class, because I really was excited to teach speech and debate in particular, because it
Okay.
can be so much fun. Like, I'm a public speaker. I perform open mic comedy, storytelling, and poetry. So, like, I had a lot of fun ways of going about teaching it, not just, very dry. I had them do like um, magnetic poetry. Where
Okay. Yeah,
have you
like
ever
on the
seen that?
refrigerator.
Yeah, so I had that up in my room, and like we did this, like where they were teams, and they got to pick what words, and then they had, like, round robin to create poems. Like, so they were out of their chairs, they were, so like I was a fun teacher, if you will. And that was after I was let go. Um, a couple months afterwards, I was talking to one of my colleagues, and she was like she said, I want to let you know you're not the only person that this happened to. And
Oh.
if they wanted to keep you, they would have. So don't feel like it was all you. But she said, one of your kids was complaining about your replacement, and he said, well, at least Miss Murphy was fun. So
Oh,
I made a brief impression.
yeah. I mean, that's it. That's what you do. And I mean, a brief impression is an impression. I mean, that's something. And like that was, I mean, they probably made an impression on you as well. And
Oh yeah, yeah. It's been a couple years, but there's some of the kids who just blew me away. Just who were so poised and that shared something really um, quite intimate about their life, and you're just like, wow, this kid's 12. Just
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Okay. So then, what was it that you were like, I'm gonna sign up to do this? Like, what was it? Were you, uh, you know, browsing one ads or something, or did someone say, hey, you should go and and try this out, or you drive by the school and they have a big sign open, like a lot of them did during COVID. There was a lot of, schools that had signs saying we need teachers, come here.
No, like I said at the beginning, I just was like, I'm going to move to a smaller community where the cost of living is cheaper. Um, I was already starting that process when I had my remote job. And then I was let go from that job. And so I was like, well, let me sign up for substitute teaching. And because that principal needed bodies,
Okay.
she was approaching me about being a permanent sub and then, you know, go do all this testing and then we can offer you a permanent position. But I was there, a little, like 5, 6 weeks. So
Okay.
it's not enough time for all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe how long I was there, somewhere probably close to that. And I was like, yeah, okay. I got my lesson. It taught me enough of what I needed to learn, and I could be on my way. And so, I mean, what was the position you were doing before the remote one, and how'd you find that? How, because I mean, those would be
Oh, I was
hard to come
referred.
by.
Oh, I was referred by a friend for the job. We had worked together and then became friends like 2 decades earlier in a different industry.
Whoa.
Um, and this was Medicaid financial company that helped with people getting assistance in their home. Um, it was totally out of my normal wheelhouse of work. Um, I've done, although normal for me, I'm using the air quotes.
Right.
I've had more jobs. I've had more jobs than years on the planet,
Me
but
too.
the buckets that they fall into is restaurant hospitality, writing, um, public health, and education. So that was like the first time I was like as a school teacher in K through 12 environment. But I had done tutoring and I did tutoring at the college level. I'd done training at a corporate level. So there's always kind of been this teacher in me that was unconventional, I guess. And I just actually had I signed up for this tutoring platform in 2024 when I had that teaching position. And about a month ago, I got my first student through this platform, and I had so much fun. And it was kind of healing. Like it was like, okay, you're a good teacher in a one-on-one environment. You're not such a great teacher in a class of 30. Excuse me.
The students that you are able to connect with, like, and if they don't, there's other ones. If you're at a school, I mean, they can put you in different classrooms, but like, how often do kids get put in different classrooms? Or but with a tutor, like, if you get a good tutor, like, you're set. Like, it doesn't have to, you don't have to be in a different place. Like, I think that's another thing too. Like, if I could have, there would have been so many things if I could have done differently when I was a kid going to school. If I could have done the school where I stayed at home and I didn't have to go to school, if I could have dropped out after ninth grade and got my GED, I would have done that. I would, but like, I love learning, but the learning was not there for me. That was not what I how I learned. But like, if I had a good tutor, if I have someone that I really enjoy, learning from, like, I'd be a good student. But like, you put me in a classroom, like if I was a kid in your classroom doing public speaking at 12, I mean, I would have been, I don't even know, that would not have been a good thing for me, I don't believe. I was
Right.
not, yeah.
Well, there's 8 different styles of learning, and public education only like teaches to 2 of them. So you're exactly right. Like if you're falling outside the bell curve, you're already set up for struggle.
Hmm.
And then there's the social dynamics, and there's a lot going on. And then what kind of support do you have at home? And there's just a lot going on with it's not equal. Kids aren't on equal ground in that classroom.
Yeah,
And
right off
that's
the
what's
bat.
nice about, yeah, right out of the gate. Whether
Yeah.
you are a student who wants to learn and who wants to cooperate with the classroom rules and all those things. But like that was like for me, the way I approach tutoring is I give kids that assessment to find out how they learn, what their learning style. And usually you have three, and one's kind of dominant, the other two uh, after it. And so I do that in my first session. So then I know how to approach their learning. And then we just kind of, and then every 20 minutes, I give them a break because you need time to process and you keep putting too much, like, so the needs of the state to feed you this much information in this time period works against the way the brain works too for everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, so I kind of use all these techniques and then you connect. And the thing I specialize is reading. So I make
Okay.
sure the kid tells me what they like to read because if you're interested in what you're reading, or we're already going to have a better time than if I'm making you read something you're not interested in. So,
Right.
which
Yeah. But
the red badge of courage was my albatross.
okay. Yeah. Uh, and I mean, yeah, it's what's the, I don't know, there's so much that's like, okay, you need to read this, it's required learning. And like, well, okay. So what you're telling me is I need to be able to pass this test and I can find a way to learn just enough without having to read this. And then I can go home and read what I want to read about that I'm actually interested in. But in the meantime, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to find a way around it. And it's probably even easier now. But like, if you get someone that like, it's, I can go down rabbit holes for hours and hours and hours reading about what I want to learn about. But I mean, I don't think I read hardly any required books at least in high school or middle school or probably even college. I don't think I read many of them. If maybe a few, but I graduated those places. They pushed me through, just barely, um, but I love reading. I love reading. I love learning. I just did not care the slightest bit about that. And like, if you get a kid that cares about it, and you can get that kid really caring about what they're learning, they're gonna, have a completely different view. It doesn't matter what they're learning. It really, for the most part, like as long as you find that way to connect with them and get them to actually love reading, like because
Yeah.
like I could have gone and be like, yeah, books are stupid. I don't want to read books ever. They're horrible. There's not one good book out there. I don't want that. I don't want people to be thinking that way. There's always something else. And like what you were saying with learning styles, like when I was a kid, it was you're either a visual learner or an auditory learner. They were just starting to say there was kind of maybe a third one, maybe a hybrid. That so could have been maybe three or four, but it was really just you're either a visual learner or an auditory learner, and I wasn't either one of those. And so like uh, I'd be and then there's like study skills stuff. Like I'd be going to these study skills classes because I didn't. But now I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to do that. I have Chat GPT now that can organize that all for me. My organization still is not great. But now I have something that can organize it for me so I can work on what is important. And, I'm able to learn the way I need to learn. And so, you being able to have that out of the box, unorthodox style of teaching is something that, um, I thought I at least could have really benefited from when I was younger. And, it's a special skill to have.
Well, I will send you the link to that self-assessment. So if any of the listeners are interested in it, and certainly you, um, because it is a game changer, I think, if you understand that about yourself,
Right.
even if, and for me, the best situation for a student is self-direction. So if they're involved in the decision making of their learning, I'm going to have a much better outcome because they have some agency. And I think particularly when you're a kid, you don't have a lot of agency. You have to do what your parents said. You have to do what your teacher said. Like, there's not a lot of agency. So they get a little taste of agency. They're actually more cooperative. And so, that's part of it too. It's like, yeah.
I I totally agree. And like even now, like being able to then take that information and, you know, be like, well, okay, so here is my actual learning style that maybe I had a hunch what it was, or maybe I was completely wrong about it. And then I have whole new tools of what I can do, and I can learn in a more effective way. And I'm not wasting time. I'm not, like I can tell you how many books I've had where read 2 chapters, 3 chapters tonight, and I read it. What is it about? I don't know. Or even like doing. I've had to do these tests, for uh, some assessments, some brain assessments, and then uh, for like autism assessment. I did 2 years ago, somewhere around there, and I had done it for brain stuff before, and then it was like reading something, and it's like read this passage, and then tell me what you remember about it. I'm like, I remember nothing. And they're like, okay, you can remember these numbers over here, but then you have this, but you do not remember any of it. I'm like, yeah, like that doesn't make sense. Why doesn't that make sense? But if it's something that I'm interested in and excited about, I can tell you everything about it. I can go on and I won't shut up. I'm going to be talking and talking and talking, but you're asking about this page that I'm reading and all the words just sort of blend together and become just this mush. And, I don't like, what am I getting out of this? Like, why am I wasting my time on this? And, yeah, that's, yeah, I don't know. It's school, learning it needs a big overhaul. It's not all about, uh, you know, getting kids to be, factory workers, uh, for the rest of their lives, and I guess what our education system was built off of was, um, I believe it was, uh, Ford and the Rockefellers were the ones that started the education system in the States. And I mean, that was the goal to have, workers that can work 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day. And it takes 12 years, 12 years, I believe, to fully indoctrinate someone with uh, with whatever, which is basically school of you go to school in the morning until this time, you do it this way 5 days a week, and then you're ready to go right in, you're ready to work at the factory, and you're set for forever. But like, who's working in the factory now? Like, it's not that's not what it is anymore. It works great for people, that worked in the factory their whole lives, uh, like my grandpa and stuff. Like it's great for him, but since then, I don't know how great it is. And like, I don't want to be knocking school because I think everybody should learn and everybody should, like, school is great. I just, it needs, for some people, it needs a revamp. It needs someone else. I've had some other people on here who have been, you know, uh, alternative school, uh, teachers and, of sorts. And it's just, yeah, I mean, I wish, at least now, people can do it. It wasn't like alternative school, homeschooling was such a weird thing. Those were the weirdo kids as we knew them growing up. But now it's like, dang, I really wish I could have done that. I wish that would have been me. Like
Yeah.
I would have thrived. I wouldn't have been getting in trouble with my parents all the time for not doing my homework or, being disruptive or, uh, you know, or whatever else, whatever kind of other stuff that would happen with not caring about school. Like, but I guess it was something I needed to learn. I needed to learn that way to be able to talk about it now. I guess, however many years it's been since I've been out of school. Um, I guess it hasn't been that long. I mean, it's been long. There's been some big gaps, but I've been out of school then still, but for no, almost almost 10 years. But then there was a 12-year gap. Uh, yeah. So my college, I can tell you about my college real quick. So I went to see. I'll go back. Okay, so my school was they wanted everybody to get a good paying job, go to college. Everyone's gonna go to college, and
Hmm.
um, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to take some time off. I want to go uh, do a different job. And I was gonna go work at a a marina, um, and down in Arizona, and but I'm like, I'll apply to some colleges just for backup. And um, then I was like, okay. So I went and I was waiting for the thing to get there, see how I was going to get the job. And then it became like September, and I hadn't heard anything from the marina. They kept on like putting it off. And then, so I'm like, okay, well, I already told these colleges, uh, which would have been, it was uh, UNLV and Southern Oregon and Northern Arizona. And I told them all I'm not going, so I'm going to work at this marina. And then it didn't happen, so I signed up at Portland Community College and went there. And then the day after I signed up, I found out I got the job at the marina, but I put a non-refundable deposit down. So I ended up going to school there, um, and working full time at the same time, delivering pizzas. And so going to school full time, working full time, and I did that for 2 years. No, not 2 years. What was that been from 2001 till 2005? And um, so then I got a transfer degree. So I was going to transfer to Portland State because uh, Facebook Facebook had come out at select universities, and you had to have a specific university email to be able to get Facebook. And so I went to Portland State because of that. And I lasted there for a term and a half because it was like I was doing sociology was kind of the main thing, sociology and Russian, and I was like, yeah, like it was cool. At community college, it was all about people and you know observing people and stuff of that nature. But then I got to university, and it was all about like people are like this because of this societal problem, and I'm like, I don't really like this. I don't really care about this. I'm not interested. Like, um, it didn't matter to me, like I really just liked what I was doing before, and so um, yeah, I did a term and a half, and then I ended up dropping out and working for the government, and I was like, well, okay, that's nice. That job wasn't much better. It was a mailman for a bit. But so I had my Facebook though, which was good, and I dropped out then, and so I thought that I had my 2 year degree, but so I just thought that I never got my degree in the mail, and so when was that? Oh, no, like 2012, 20, yeah, maybe 2012. I had a friend, and she was going to Portland Community College. And so I like walked in there and I was like, hey, I haven't got my degree. Like, can I get that now? And they're like, oh, here, let me check. And they said, oh, well, your GPA is too low to be able to, get your degree. But I got my transfer degree, but I just didn't get my associate's degree. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? Like, it's been 7 years already. I'm not going to go and do this. Like, I don't, it's okay. I'm fine now. And like, all right, well, and then so then I'm back in high school. Like, I had to really work to be able to get that 2.0 GPA I needed to graduate high school, which was the same thing I needed for college. So both of them were just barely at that. Like, I can almost maybe just sneak by and pass. And then so um, then like 2017, I was living in a different part of Portland, and I could walk from my bedroom into the admissions office up at the campus in like 5 minutes. And I was like, what do I need to do to get my degree? And I said, well, you need to retake one class. I'm like, okay. So I retook one class. It was, I ended up taking a screenwriting and, what was it? Screenwriting, I believe is what it was called. So I wrote like, I outlined a screenplay and wrote the first third of it and then wrote a 10-minute play. And then I was able to get my 2 year degree after almost 16 years. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so like, and I was like, oh, I'm good. And so like, but it wasn't. I don't know why I even like did that. It was just like it was never something that really was too exciting for me. But I'm sorry I talked about myself for a long time there while I am the host,
It's fine.
getting in there. But like, that's my schooling. Like, uh, it was,
You had to close the loop.
yeah,
Humans like to close the loop. So that one class, it helped you close the loop. That's great.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it was, sometimes you got to close that loop. And, sometimes it's, I could have left that loop open, but, I don't know what the reason was. I decided to finish it, but whatever it was. But then it's like, do you want to go to a 4 year university? I'm like, no, I don't. I do not want to go do that at all. I have no desire to go back to that. But yeah, I mean, then I found, hypnosis. Yeah, I mean, it was like, so I finished that in March of 2017. And then in July was when I busted my knee. And like, that was when I was like, okay, I can't do any physical labor anymore. I can't wrestle anymore. Like, so now it's like, okay, now I need to use that, like, that part of I need to use my brain to be able to get a job. Like, I can't just lift stuff all the time and, move things and, get beat up by people. Like, but then, yeah, I mean, that's when find hypnosis and it's like, okay, well, there's something I never would have thought of, like that was an option, like that wasn't something that they tell you in school, like, oh, you can be a hypnotist. Like, no, they don't tell you that you know, in my area, um, where I grew up. So that's not wasn't an option for things you could do. And so, I mean, now it's great. Like, if people want to learn anything, they can learn anything, and like they can come to you. They can like, and so like, I mean, so with parents and kids, is it them? Like, how does that work? Do the kids like get to pick you, or do the parents pick you, or like how does that go? Is it a combination?
But in terms of my recent student,
Yeah,
well, yeah. So I have an ad on a platform called superprof.com, and I'm sure the parent looked through the options, and they when I did a conversation with the mom, they were working with someone in California, but the time difference was a problem.
sure.
And I was on the East Coast, and so it was, I think more the parent's decision, but the parent was very the student um, had an input for sure,
Yeah,
and but we hit it off, and I think they just appreciated my approach was um, different from the woman in California because I I didn't come from it like as a cookie cutter. Like, oh, this one, the student had to take this standardized test. So that teacher was just teaching to that standardized test. Where my approach was, okay, first session, I want to find out what kind of learner you are, and um, and then go from there. And then in looking at the standardized test, I was kind of breaking it down first, like using it also to understand how the student was interacting with the material, because then from there becomes more techniques I can give them for their success. Because the goal is pretty simple, right? I just need to pass this test.
yeah,
But um but but here's the thing, the problem with I'm someone who wants to teach critical thinking. Like anyone can regurgitate information, but are you understanding and then having the ability to discern, with all information? Because I don't know, it just feels like critical. It's kind of gone by the wayside.
yeah. I
Yeah,
agree, 100% agree with you.
yeah, yeah. So that and to me, I love learning. Like I love reading, and so I always feel sad when someone tells me that they don't like those things. And I kind of have this belief that you do, you just haven't discovered it yet.
I
Y-
Yeah,
so it's my job to help you discover it, the joy in it.
but
And yeah, and it's meeting the student where they're at, because it's and like I said, I do certain things that is going to set them up for success. Like, what are you interested in? That was in that first session. Like, I'm going to pull stuff for you to read. So what do you like? what are your interests? This particular student likes sports, so I knew to get some articles on sports for her to, and have her read them to me so I can see, okay, is there a possible dyslexia going on or different things, because how someone reads out loud to you, you can pick up a lot of what's going on with them, right?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so it just, I try to make it fun. And then because I knew she was anxious, in my little, we take a break every 20 minutes, I'm teaching them stuff like box breathing or
Ooh.
self-havening, which is, different self-regulating activities so that you can do that to kind of, before you kind of, the amygdala hijacks everything. And
Right.
once the amygdala hijacks you, your frontal lobe kind of shuts down. So you need that to be operational, to be successful on a test. So that's kind of what I give them those breaks, but I use those breaks to give them some skills to kind of cope with testing anxiety and what have you. Um, and then, then once I teach them a few things, then it's like the agency, right? Well, what do you want to do for your break today? It's always giving them choices, right?
Yeah.
And my one student was great. One day she's like, could we just talk? And I said, yeah, let's just talk. So, and what a pleasure. And then she passed. So that was, a really good news. So,
And the fact that she wants to open up to you and wants to talk. And most time I'd be like, well, cool. Like, see you later, teacher. I'm gonna go out and play kickball for an hour. Like, I don't want to think about you. I don't want to believe you're here for the next little while. But the fact that she wanted to actually come to you and, feel safe enough to open up to you and talk with you, and that's pretty special there. That's an important part. And I mean, and you said you had done, public speaking and uh, in comedy and uh, is there poetry? I believe it's poetry or is it poetry?
and yeah, and storytelling.
Storytelling. And so I mean, like that's also, then connecting with the audience and or the audience or the student, which can sometimes be the same thing. But it's that being able to you know connect, be able to connect and get the person to connect too, like just with themselves. Like that's something I
Yeah.
think that's a hard part for a lot of people to be able to connect with themselves. And then like I like that you're doing the 20 minutes and then having a break and teaching them to self-regulate and teaching them how to do critical thinking. Because I mean, even that is uh, like you said, it's a lost art there, and people are going to be in trouble there if they don't do that. Like, uh, you're like with hypnosis, like you can teach someone how to read a script and they can read a script. You can teach someone a comedy set and, they can have a tight 5 minutes, let's say. But then after minute one, the crowd doesn't care at all. Don't give the biggest shit about you. You lost them. But then you have 4 minutes of material and you don't know what to do. Like, then I mean that's when you have to be able to be like, okay, well, I know what to do because of the idea of what I'm doing, and I'm not stuck on this. This is the only way to do this, and like just being able to think about something different is huge, and be able to do critical thinking for a kid is so important. Um, I don't think that's something that we were really taught in school very much. Like you said, it was just read the book, read the textbook uh, made by uh, McGraw-Hill, who is uh, the person who uh, made the textbook is Glenn Maxwell's dad, and that whole thing, and that's a whole different ball game there. But I mean, yeah, they don't need to teach critical thinking. That's cool. Like, there's someone like you that's able to be like, okay, this is something you need to know that you can go and use the rest of your life. Please learn this, and you'll see why.
Yeah.
You may not think so now, maybe, or maybe you'll understand why now, but eventually you're gonna go, oh, I'm so happy uh, that I was taught that. And so also then, so what do you go by when you're a teacher? Are you Mrs. Murphy, or how does that work? Or are you
Well, for my tutor students, I just had them call me Marianne.
okay,
Like
cool.
my first name. That's what I feel most comfortable with.
Yeah,
In a school district, you have to, do the Miss Murphy thing.
right.
You know, um, but you know, part of building rapport, and it's important. Like in bigger systems, having that separation, there's a psychology to it, right?
Yeah,
But in a one-on-one setting, I don't think that kind of separation is helpful. It probably works against the one-on-one dynamic. Um, so uh, you know, and for me, that is my name. That's the name I go by. If
yeah,
I went by a different nickname or something, that would be what I would offer. Uh, it's Yeah, I for me, I look at it too as like I'm learning from the student as much as they're learning from me. There's the duality of um, student teacher. You're kind of, it's a dance that even though I'm quote unquote the tutor here and she's the student, I'm learning from her on how to improve my skills as a tutor. So it goes back and forth, and like I said, for me, because it was, I had that wound from losing that job, and this kind of came up, and I was like, okay, great, I could use the money, and but it brought back how much joy I had with that one-on-one interaction and that connection, and like I just kind of forgot how, and it was kind of a little bit of redemption of like, okay, you just, if you're in the right environment, you'll thrive. Like when we look at plants who are not thriving, we immediately don't say what's wrong with the plant. We go, what's the soil? What's the how much water has it been given? How much sun? But with humans, we immediately think what's wrong with the human. And honestly, it's usually the environment that's
agree.
creating challenge for the human. So, and for me, the other element is, being a cheerleader. I think kids who are have the EIPs, so they're given some accommodations. They have some kind of learning challenge, and so they're already getting the messaging that they're stupid, or that they're not like their peers, or they're whatever. And to me, I that's a big part of it. It's like, you're very bright. I can tell this by, when we are interacting here. So even if you fail this test, that doesn't mean you're not bright. That doesn't mean you're not capable of learning. It's really important to separate identity from accomplishments, outcomes. You are separate. You are not those things. But our Western society really pushes that. But for me, it's, like that I'm not sure who came up with it, but it's like, if a fish was judged by its ability to ride a bicycle, well, it's never going to win. It's never going to understand success
Right.
or fulfillment, or, right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of looking at people that way too. And that's how I look at the learning styles. It's like, and then if you're neurodivergence, or you're dealing with ADHD or dyslexia, or, any of these other things, where a classroom environment,
Yeah.
that's just, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work, and recognizing that it's the environment. Like one of my best, like after as a tutor, we took this training about the 8 different learning styles. I had a student who, at the college, so they would go in and do a reading assessment, and if they failed, they would get one-on-one tutoring and then get an opportunity to test again. So he did his first test and then sat with me and we talked about the test, and he was getting the answers right. And then we had different stations, right? We did one-on-one tutoring and then we would switch and do grading. So when he was coming out of his second attempt, I had been switched to the grading. So here I had tutored him and now I was getting the opportunity to grade him. And he did worse. He went from like a 30% to a 20%. And I'm like, I know you know this stuff because I just tutored you. I said, hold on, I'm going to talk to my supervisor. And I talked to my supervisor and I said, I think this kid is an audio learner. And I said, I think if we put him in a private room and I gave him the instruction to read each question out loud to himself and each answer out loud to himself, he would pass the test. But he's already taken 2. Can we make an exception? Absolutely. Go ahead. He got a 90%.
Yeah, I mean, well, something so,
At the end of the
yeah, go ahead.
No, so at the end of the semester, he came and I said to him, I said, look, you need to get this accommodation with all your classes for your testing. It's going to change. Go to the guidance counselor, da, da, da. At the end of the semester, he came back to visit me and he goes, hey, this is the first time I feel like I'm smart.
And that,
And this is college.
yeah, that contains someone's whole trajectory in life just by that, um, a simple, a simple change of anything like that. Like that, you just change that kid's whole life. Like, it may not have happened ever, you know, and he could have had that self-fulfilling prophecy of, I'm stupid, and just that's it, and you changed all that.
Drop out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's gratifying. That kind of work is gratifying,
yeah. So then, if there's that work, then what's the other work that's gratifying for you that you're doing that we haven't talked about yet that I wanted to bring up that now that we're getting towards the end, I wanted
No,
to
it's
hear
great.
about.
I'm a founder of a nonprofit for lived informed experience for suicide prevention educations. So it's called Dance Walking Fool. I am also the Dance Walking Fool. I this kind of all started in 2019, but I incorporated in November of 2021. Um, I have been cast on a TV show, so I'll be doing some filming for Inside Success about my nonprofit in October. And basically, I survived my own attempts when I was in my 20s, and it was coming up on my 25th anniversary of an attempt. And my mom, I didn't even remember the date really. This was 2019. And she said, I'm sad you still struggle. And I said, yeah, it's true, Mom. I said, but there's another way to look at it. I mean, I'm still here. I'm still trying, and so I ended up doing like a Facebook Live talking about success and failure. And like success has a lot of different meanings, but for a lot of people, it's hitting those big milestones of college and marriage and kids and a big house and all the things.
Right.
And totally valid. And then I said, but success basically is having a goal with an intended outcome and you achieve it. And failure is not achieving that intended outcome. So, real simple. So, what if you do all the right things and you know, but you're miserable?
Yeah,
Are you a success?
it's up to,
And it
yeah, it's a rhetorical question.
yeah, but it deserves an answer too. It's like if I think that's a crisis a lot of people have is like, I'm supposed to be happy. I have all the things, but I'm not. Why aren't I happy? And that's going to be different for each person, the answer to that. But then to bring up the suicide part, I said, but failure is dismissed in our society as well. Like, we don't realize, I mean, I know I learn far more from my mistakes than my successes. Those are the lessons that really, stick. And so I said, you know, 25 years ago today, I had an intended outcome to take my life, and I failed at it. And it's the best failure of my life. You know,
Sure.
I'm glad I failed at that.
Yeah,
And so, like, I reframed suicide like that. And since starting my nonprofit, I've kind of come up with a framework on how to have the difficult conversations, because when I was 21 and today, there's a 39% increase of deaths by suicide. Currently in the US, the number one cause of death, age 10 to 34, is suicide.
whoa,
Children are 5 times more likely to die by suicide than childhood cancer.
whoa. Those are some
Yes.
huge numbers.
So it's not getting any better. It's getting worse. And a big part of the programming is like, I'm going to magically spot the symptoms in you. We mask, we hide
Right.
it. Good luck. But what's problematic about that is not only is not effective, but now you're setting up people. If you've lost someone to suicide, you're 3 times more likely yourself to die by suicide. So you've
Whoa.
already taken a complicated grief situation and made it more complicated because of this belief I should have been able to prevent someone's death. We have to stop that nonsense. And then for me, I have a framework, I call it CRAN, on how to approach these conversations. And I do role playing. So in my class, you get to be the person who's in crisis and the person that they're approaching for support, and go through that. And basically it's like how to be compassionate, caring, how to be a reflective listener and a responsive listener, um, how to assess. Now, it's not your job to fix this, right? You're supporting someone in crisis. Um, and the agency of what happens after this conversation stays with the person in crisis, because if you have agency, you are more likely to be successful, right? Going back to the education part, but it's in all things. We all, as human beings, want agency. And then non-judgmental. And so for me, the problem, we look at this like with a lot of shame, and we try to understand something illogical logically, so you're not going to close that loop satisfactorily. So if you're in physical pain, of course you want relief. Well, why isn't it reasonable to want relief from emotional pain? It's quite reasonable. And someone who's experiencing ideation, which could be for a multiple of reasons, most of the medication that they offer for depression and anxiety also has an associated side effect of suicidal
Right.
ideation. So,
Yeah.
you know, is it coming from the person, or is it coming from their environment or the pill they're taking? It's a lot of factors here to consider, but without going down that rabbit hole. But someone who's in that state is basically dysregulated, and they don't have other options, and they just want the pain to stop. Just like if you broke your arm, you want that pain to stop. And so for me, one of the things that makes you safer is the ability to talk about it, because then you feel less alone. There's an opportunity for validation. But if it's in quiet, if it's only in the confines of your mind, you are at much greater risk on acting on those thoughts. So my whole framework is about getting people to talk about it openly, non-judgmentally, um, and like, this is a problem we can fix. Like, you may not have the coping skills right now, but we can learn them. There's lots of options. But yeah, suicide is a valid option. I mean, it's not the best one. It's not one I'm going to encourage, but like, we have to stop, like, tabooing it. Like, yeah, it's an option. I don't think it's your best one. I think we can come up with better ones. But if you don't acknowledge the thing, it becomes scarier. You have to just meet it like, yeah, it is. I, for 40 years, I've had a brain that has told me to kill myself, so I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And,
And,
and so to me, it's like, um, I'm not your map, but I can teach you how to become an expert of your own body and mind. And I can give you all kinds of different tools, and you can try them out, assemble your own mental wellness toolkit of different things to try when things are not going well. And then that's the real reality is not one, is there's no silver bullet. There's a lot of things to try, um, to help you manage it. Yeah.
like you were saying earlier, there's a lot of different ways people can learn and people learn. And like, so you're given these options and you're making something that's not super taboo, not super scary. It's part of reality, and that's part of what helps. Every time you ignore something or, try to not think about it, it's going to get twice as strong. And, just, like with any sort of thing like that, it's going to get more and more power. And the more you talk about it, the less power it has. And that's not something a lot of people want to do, but that's reality, and that's how our brains work. So may as well go with it. So if people want to be able to, get to that, they can go down here in the description and they can get a hold of you. What would be the best way to get a hold of you to learn more or to work with you or any of that? How do they do that?
Sure. Well, I'm doing my website's being revamped right now, which is dancewalkingfool.org. So there'll be a contact. But Instagram is probably the direct messaging, and Dance Walking Fool is the handle there. That gets to, that alerts me. You have a message.
Yeah,
There's so many platforms now. It's like I can't even keep up with them all. But
same.
and but yeah, I'm we do ideally these courses in small settings over Zoom. Ideally it's a family unit or a friend group, because we're all basically one traumatic event away from needing mental health support. So
Yeah,
this is not this is a skill set that we can all use, and I'd rather people learn it before there's a crisis, because when we're in crisis, we're in our
right,
amygdala. We're not in our best thinking. But like I hope that this skill set can kind of, just like learning CPR would be a useful thing,
right.
because someday you'll have someone who might need it.
Yeah,
Um,
I, yeah. And I mean, like what you were saying too with teaching the kids box breathing and other self-regulation. And with CPR, like I learned CPR and then I used it like less than a year later. I don't even know if it was a year later. It was pretty soon after. And I mean, yeah, like it's good to have those skills beforehand, like just to have
mhm.
it, like before you get there. So yeah, so thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on here and getting to have the chat about. I didn't know we were going to chat about, which is good, and we got to get where we needed to get to be able to get to this, and Yeah, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, rustydiamond.net has everything you need. All all fun in there. And yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you, Marianne. I really appreciate having you
Thank
on.
you.
Enjoyed it. And that is the show. Man, boom.